Q3786. Responsibility for collision avoidance in an alert area rests with A. The controlling agency. B. All pilots. C. Air traffic control. The correct answer is B. In an alert area, the responsibility for collision avoidance rests with all pilots. Alert areas are designated airspace where there is a high volume of pilot training or an unusual type of aerial activity taking place. These areas are established to inform pilots of the potential presence of aircraft conducting activities that may not be immediately apparent or easily detectable. While air traffic control, ATC, may provide services and information to pilots operating in alert areas, their primary role is to assist with coordination and traffic separation. However, ATC does not have the sole responsibility for collision avoidance in alert areas. It is the responsibility of all pilots operating in the alert area to exercise extreme caution and remain vigilant for other aircraft. Pilots should actively scan the airspace, maintain situational awareness, and communicate their intentions effectively. They should adhere to established procedures, such as broadcasting on appropriate frequencies, maintaining visual separation, and complying with any specific instructions or restrictions provided by ATC. By actively participating in collision avoidance efforts, pilots can contribute to the overall safety and efficiency of operations within alert areas. Collaboration and adherence to established procedures by all pilots are essential for maintaining a high level of safety in these airspace areas. 3831. Pilots flying over a National Wildlife Refuge are requested to fly no lower than A. 1,000 feet AGL, B. 2,000 feet AGL, C. 3,000 feet AGL. The correct answer is B. When flying over a National Wildlife Refuge, pilots are requested to fly no lower than 2,000 feet above ground level, AGL, to minimize the impact on wildlife and their habitats. This request is made to protect the natural environment and ensure the well-being of the wildlife within the refuge. National wildlife refuges are designated areas that provide habitats for various species of wildlife, including birds, mammals, reptiles, and plants. These refuges are managed by government agencies, such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with the goal of conserving and protecting the native flora and fauna. By flying at a higher altitude, pilots reduce the potential disturbances caused by aircraft noise, engine emissions, and visual presence. Wildlife, especially nesting birds, may be sensitive to disturbances and can be easily startled or displaced by low-flying aircraft. Maintaining a higher altitude helps to minimize these disturbances and allows wildlife to go about their natural behaviors without unnecessary disruption. It's important for pilots to be aware of the specific altitude requirements for each national wildlife refuge they may fly over. These requirements can vary depending on the refuge and may be subject to change based on seasonal or conservation considerations. Pilots should consult aeronautical charts, NOTAMs, notices to airmen, and official publications like the Aeronautical Information Manual, AM, for up-to-date information on altitude restrictions for specific areas. By respecting and adhering to the altitude requests, pilots can contribute to the conservation efforts of national wildlife refuges and help ensure the long-term preservation of these important ecosystems. 3130. In which type of airspace are VFR flights prohibited? A. Class A, B. Class B, C. Class C. The correct answer is A. VFR, visual flight rules. Flights are prohibited in Class A airspace. Class A airspace is the highest level of controlled airspace in the United States and is generally found above 18,000 feet, mean sea level, MSL, up to flight level 600, FL 600. It is primarily designed for instrument flight rules, IFR, operations. Class A airspace is characterized by strict instrument flight requirements, including the mandatory use of instrument flight plans, IFR, and communication with air traffic control, ATC, services. The purpose of Class A airspace is to ensure separation of IFR flights and provide a controlled environment for high-altitude, long-distance flights. Since VFR flights rely on visual references and operate under less stringent requirements than IFR flights, they are not permitted in Class A airspace. VFR pilots are typically limited to lower-altitude airspace, such as Class B, Class C, Class D, Class E, or Class G airspace, depending on the specific rules and regulations of each airspace class. It's important for pilots to be familiar with the airspace classes and the associated requirements to ensure compliance and maintain safe operations during their flights. 3784. A balloon flight through a restricted area is A. Permitted at certain times, but only with prior by the appropriate authority. B. Permitted anytime, but caution should be exercised because of high-speed military aircraft. C. Never permitted. The correct answer is A. When it comes to balloon flights through restricted areas, the specific rules and procedures may vary depending on the country and the controlling agency responsible for the airspace. Generally, restricted areas are established to protect sensitive military operations, national security, or other special activities that may pose a risk to aircraft. In order to conduct a balloon flight through a restricted area, the pilot must obtain prior authorization from the appropriate authority. This may involve contacting the controlling agency or military base responsible for the restricted area and submitting a request for access. The authorization process may include providing information about the planned flight, the purpose of the flight, and the specific time and duration of the flight. The controlling agency will evaluate the request based on factors such as the current military activities or hazards in the area, the impact of the balloon flight on those activities, and the overall safety considerations. If the request is approved, the pilot will receive specific instructions or limitations regarding the authorized time, altitude, and route of the balloon flight. It's important for balloon pilots to thoroughly understand the regulations and procedures related to restricted areas in their operating area. They should be aware of any specific NOTAMs, notices to airmen, or other relevant information regarding restricted areas and any temporary restrictions or closures. By following the proper authorization process and adhering to the instructions provided, balloon pilots can safely navigate through restricted airspace when authorized to do so. 2192, which is true regarding flight operations in Class B airspace. A. The pilot must receive an ATC clearance operating an aircraft in that area. B. Flight under VFR is not authorized unless the pilot in command is instrument rated. C. Solo student pilot operations are not authorized. No person may operate an aircraft within Class B airspace unless the operator first receives an ATC clearance from the ATC facility having jurisdiction for that area. The correct answer is A. Class B airspace surrounds the busiest airports and is the most strictly controlled airspace. The fundamental rule is that a pilot must receive explicit air traffic control, ATC, clearance prior to entering. Mandatory clearance and communication, establishing two-way radio contact, is not enough. The pilot must receive specific authorization to enter. Continuous communication must be maintained throughout the transition. Equipment requirements. Aircraft operating in this airspace must be equipped with an operable Mode C transponder, altitude reporting, and a two-way radio. VFR operations. Visual flight rules, VFR. Flights are fully permitted and do not require an instrument rating, provided the pilot receives the necessary clearance. Positive control. ATC provides strict separation services for all aircraft, meaning pilots must meticulously comply with assigned altitudes, headings, and speeds to ensure safety in a high-traffic environment.